Now that you've built your first view, it's time to build a slightly more sophisticated view. The view you'll build is the category view, which will enable your user to browse products by category, as well as drill down into subcategories. In order to work with this data, you're going to need 3 API endpoints from the REST API chapter. The first is the route for loading a category by ID. Recall that this route loads a single category document, including its ID and list of ancestors. In this case, you have this books category, whose only ancestor is itself. The second is the route for loading all categories by their parent field. This will be useful for allowing users to drill down into child categories. So recall that this route returns a list of category documents whose parent is the given category, in this case, books. As you can see, you get back 2 documents. First is fiction, and then second is nonfiction. Now the third and final route that you're going to need is the route that loads all products that belong to a given category. In this case, the category is web programming. And since there's only one book in that category, this professional AngularJS book, you only get back 1 document. So now that you've had a refresher on how the relevant API endpoints work, let's take a closer look at how this view works. So in index.js, you're going to have to add a new route. The new route is this /category/:category route. Notice that this route has a template. Let's take a look at this category view.html template. So as you can see, the category view.html template is pretty simple. It has these 2 directives, which you'll learn about shortly. These 2 directives are this category tree directive and the category products directive. Now the category tree directive corresponds to this part of the view where the user can navigate the category tree. The category products directive is responsible for rendering this whole list of products. So now let's take a look at these 2 directives. First, let's take a look at the category tree directive, since it's a little simpler. Let's take a look at the category tree controller first. So this is the category tree controller. It's responsible for 2 simple tasks. It's going to load data from the category by ID route, and then the category by parents route, and expose both data points to the JavaScript scope. So let's take a look at how the HTML uses this data. So this is template /categorytree.html, the HTML corresponding to the category tree directive. The first part of this HTML should look pretty familiar. In particular, it's identical to the category navigation that you saw in the product details view lesson. The second part of the HTML, this child categories div, is new. So again, the new part corresponds to this drop-down. Let's see how this works in HTML. So first, the child category drop-down only appears if there are children to show. The first thing you put is a divider div, and then there's an arrow that toggles the visibility state of this drop-down. Specifically, once you click on the drop-down, this display variable gets set to true, and once display gets set to true, this drop-down shows up because of this ng-show here. So once you click on the drop-down, this child select div shows up. Now when the child select div appears, that is when display is true, this div is then going to repeat over all of the children or all of the child categories. And you're going to have a link to each child category. So that's it for the category tree directive. Let's take a look at the category products directive. Now as you might have guessed, the category products directive also consists of just a template and a controller. Let's take a look at the controller first. Here's the definition of category products controller. This controller defines 2 functions. The most important is this load function, so let's take a look at that first. The load function is responsible for loading product data from the server. It queries the server for which products belong to the given category, and then adds a special query parameter for sorting by price. And once the controller is done loading, it's going to query the server for data. The other function is this handle price click function. This enables the user to toggle sorting by price. So now that you've seen how this controller works, let's take a look at the HTML. So this is the category products.html file, which is the HTML for the category products directive. It has 2 distinct parts. The first thing we have is this price toggle, or this sort arrow div. This handles sorting by price and shows some handy arrows to indicate the sort order to the user. Now the second part of the directive's HTML is the list of products represented by this product div. This part does an ng repeat over all the list of products, and for each product it's going to display the product's name with a link to the product detail view, And finally, it's going to display the price using the display price virtual that you learned about in the schema design chapter. And finally, there's a button that will enable you to add this product to your cart, which you will implement when you implement the cart view. And that's it, you've implemented this entire category view. So here again is your category tree directive, and here's your category products directive.